in civil cases. Civil cases are decided on the basis of preponderance of, I will take the one lecture on that. So the inferences drawn on preponderance of evidence mean it may happen, circumstances. But in the criminal cases, prosecution must establish the case beyond reasonable doubt. In the civil cases, it may have happened. You take recourse to the provisions of Section 114 of the Evidence Act. The court may draw presumption. The court may assume it. But in the case of circumstantial evidence, you cannot indulge in preponderance of evidence. You must conclusively establish the fact that here, the hypothesis that say one except the accused, nobody else. But whereas in civil cases, the court may draw, for example, whether the agreement which you have produced in the court of law, it's a mortgage deed or it is a what do you call it, a promissory note. The court will see the intention of the parties, surrounding circumstances, court may presume by virtue of preponderance of possibilities, court may accept, it is not a mortgage deed. It is in fact a promissory note. Whether it's an agreement is a leave and license or it's a lease deed here. So, under the rent control legislation, with a view to circumvent the rule of law, you may make bogus agreement. To do not want to pay taxes to the corporation, more taxes. So you may enter into a conspiracy with your landlord, कि मैं आपको cash amount दूंगा, check कम बताइए, isn't it? So the prosecution will rely upon preponderance of possibilities. Or you may take up the plea that the agreement is sham, colorable, bogus. In a partnership account, a rendition of account, you can invoke the preponderance of possibilities. But whereas in a criminal cases, preponderance of possibility nahi rahega, plaintiff is given liberty to prove the case in a liberal manner. But in a criminal case, a prosecution must establish the case beyond reasonable doubt. In a Pune murder case, the Supreme Court says that there is a doubt here. So the prosecution has not able to establish beyond reasonable doubt, save and except the accused, nobody else could have killed him. But what about the letters of this own girl? She was suffering from mental depression. She was having psychotic tendencies. And the experts say that such people are prone to commit suicide. So that possibility cannot be ruled out. If that is the possibility, the court take up the plea that it is possible she has committed suicide. Aap samjhe na aap?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Got it? Yes.
So coming back to
Yes.
So coming back to this Sharad versus State of Maharashtra case, so finally what was decided, like the appellate, I believe in this case was none other than Sharad. So he, it was in his favor. He could be pardoned. Like it was established as a suicide.
No, yeah, he was let off.
Let off, but
He was let off. Ek bit, some phone is coming here. Yeah, sorry.
But so all these letters that the lady was sharing with her family, which kind of set the context of her depression and why there was reason for her to end her life.
Yes,
Abetment of suicide.
Yes, he can be tried for abetment of suicide under
But
309. Yes.
okay,
That
but
is
it didn't
for-
happen in this case.
for
Is it?
maybe we did not know about this case. After this case, the police must have prosecuted him under 309. 309 abetment is possible. It's a 100% a case for 309. Also 498A. Cruelty. 498A he has given tremendous amount of torture to her. Isn't
Absolutely.
it?
Absolutely.
Not only him, also his parents. His parents also can be responsible for this abetment. So you cannot say in this particular case 498A is misuse. It's a perfectly a good case for invoking action against the husband and the in-laws under 498A, which is punishable for 7 years, 100%. Now there's a prison. Yeah.
Because I think Mr. Ram Jethmalani was there for this case, so I think it just
No, yes,
went on his
he has
favor,
been
like-
able to. Ram Jethmalani, see, a seasoned lawyer like him goes into meticulous details.
Right.
See, even when you become a lawyer, you should not, your argument should not be slipshod, you know. So you should, when you are a trial lawyer, you go into very deep, you know, very, very deep. You just cannot argue superficially as argued for interlocutory application for injunction receiver. Conducting a trial is altogether a different ball to game altogether. It's like a one-day cricket, T20 cricket, and a 5-day test matches. It's like a worse than a test match, standing for a trial. So minutely, and hats off to the Supreme Court, the learned judge who delivered the judge. He has taken painstakingly, he has gone to the entire record, which he very, very well versed, according to me, industrious judgment. You can see that here. Compliments can be paid to the lawyers also. At the same time, I would pay more compliment to the judges who have done their job. They have done their beautiful homework in this matter. You know, they themselves have suo moto called for the report from the expert in the matter, gone through minutely details. That is why they are written down. See, this all did not struck to the session court as well as the high court in the matter. So when you see the page number, paragraph number 44, mein, so the opinion of Robert was taken, Robert Kelsker in the matter. Then at paragraph number 44, the judges also have taken pain to see that here, Coleridge के बारे में भी discuss किए हैं. That is the how it is given. Then it's a very important discussion on paragraph number 46 and 47. That is, you know, what is the proximate and remote inferences can be drawn. In evidence act में सीखेंगे आप injury non remota cause at proxima. It is not the remote cause, it is the proximate cause, immediate cause, which the law say. Now, in that connection, what does the Supreme Court says? Kindly see in paragraph number 46. We have pointed out these circumstances because High Court has laid a great stress on the fact that evidence led by the prosecution wholly, completely exclude the possibility of suicide, and the death of Manju was nothing but a dastardly murder. So this was the opinion of the High Court. Now 47 mein, what does the Supreme Court say? We shall now deal with the next limb of oral dying declaration. Now this is very important. Section 32 of the Indian Evidence Act deals with the dying declaration. A dying declaration, normally we learned, I told you in the first lecture, the what do you call it, hearsay evidence is not admissible. Okay? But there's a departure to hearsay evidence is two provisions are there, section 6 and 7, and section 32 is strong. Section 32 is a statement of a dead person who is not available to give evidence. So how the court draws inferences, and the person to whom the statement is made is a reliable person or not, whether a person is in authority or not, whether the statement made is relevant to the issue or not, or germane to the issue or not, whether it should be received in evidence or not, is discussed here. Let us see the aspect of oral dying declaration. You will hear it now, or many of you may not have heard of it now. We shall now deal with the paragraph number 47. Please read that. We shall now deal with the next limb of the oral dying declaration said to have been made by the deceased to her parents and friends. Some of the statements which have a casual connection with the death of Manju or the circumstances leading to her death are undoubtedly admissible under section 32 of the Evidence Act. So section 32 of the Evidence Act permits 8 types of evidence, which I will discuss and deal with you when I am taking a lecture on that. Now, what is discussed in Manju's case, Sharat's case, is that here a dying declaration which is recorded under section 32 sub clause 1. That is, a person giving evidence with regard to the dying declaration as to how he or she died. Number 2, which is a narrow one. Number two, circumstances. See, section 32 speaks of circumstances leading to her death, his or death, is a very, very wide one. That is what the Supreme Court said that here. So, two types of evidence. When you open section 32, please open. Yeah. Cases in which statement relevant fact by who is dead or cannot be found relevant. See, statement written or verbal of a relevant fact may be made by a person who is dead, that is number one, or who cannot be found, who has become incapable of giving evidence, or whose attendance cannot be found without an amount of delay expenses. Number one, when it relates to death, then naturally a man dying on the deathbed is supposed to make the truth. He doesn't tell lies. That is what on the expectation of death, a man tells the truth. Now must see that. When a statement is made by a person as to the cause of his death, number two, or as to any of the circumstances of the transaction which resulted in his death, in cases in which cause of the person death comes into question. So here in the number one case, a person making a declaration himself, he makes a statement with regards to their dying declaration. So suppose, for example, a person is knocked down by a lorry, he is removed to the hospital. So hospital may, before treatment, the police will come and the mawaldar will come. Before nurse के पास statement करेगी, बोलेगी how कहाँ लगा मार तुमको, how you got hit. He makes a statement, I was hit by an auto rickshaw driver. It was coming in that direction. At the timing was so and so person. So then the person dies after 1 hour. That's a dying declaration. Then the police will go and trace who the auto was driving, or CCTV record देखेंगे, पकड़ के लाएंगे उसको. So that is the corroboration होएगा उसके अंदर. So that is with regard to a person himself is making. Then the second instance is resulting in death. Then circumstances of transaction resulting in his death. So I told you an example. Husband told the wife, I am going to have dinner with our opponent with whom I am having a civil dispute in the court. He has invited me for dinner to settle the matter amicably once and for all. So I am going there, I will come a little late. So he doesn't turn up. And his dead body was found in the field. So here the evidence of the wife, that nobody knows how he was killed and field mein. He had gone to the place of A village, his dead body was found in B village or C village. That gentleman who killed him, with a view to raise all appearance, proof of he has dismembered the body, कहीं फेंक दिया कहीं जाके, गाड़ी में ले जाके फेंक दिया, nobody also knows. So it must be in the remote corner of about 10-15 kilometers from the place. But the statement of the wife which she will make to the wife, my husband is found missing, and he last went was, he told me he is going to the place of his friend or with whom he is having civil dispute, on who invited him for dinner. The police will go, the police will record the statement of the lady, treat it as FIR, that will be a statement. And the statement, whatever the husband had told her, is a statement falling within the ambit of 32. The husband told her, I am going at 6:30, I will come back about 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock, a little late. मैं खाने पे जा रहा हूँ. Settlement करने के लिए matter को. From Mr. X, who is having dispute with me with regard to my farm and place or land के ऊपर dispute चल रहा है हमारा. So he doesn't turn up. So whatever statement he had told his wife become admissible under 32, though they are hearsay. समझे ना आप? But since that person is dead now, dead body, whatever the wife tells the police officer, investigation officer IO, she becomes an informer under 154 statement. And also, she also not only tells her version, and also the version of her husband when she reported him that These are the circumstances leading to his death. Because just before dying, he had told me he is going. So one of the inferences that can connect here is that save and accept the gentleman, the defendant with whom he is having dispute, his friend, nobody else could have killed him. Because he was last seen in their company. Then you may examine the watchman of this building. हाँ ये आदमी कभी आया था. Then the cooks, the house people, the house people. Somebody is calling me. I'm in. Yeah, understood. So that's a dying declaration. So
So
here,
is the dying declaration given to a policeman valid, or just because it's given to a policeman it becomes invalid?
now the Supreme Court says in many cases, if it is it can be accepted as evidence. Formally, see, only confession to a police officer not, but a dying declaration can be made. A dying declaration, if he was the only person available, policeman, you made a statement, and if there is no reason why not to accept it. If he is corroborated, probably, or inferences can be drawn by the court. Okay, there is no reason not to disbelieve it. Formally, the trend was that here dying declaration made to police and executive officer not to be accepted, but that is not the scenario. Now,
thank you, sir.
Yeah, 47 में आ जाइए. We shall now deal with the next limb of the oral dying declaration said to have been made by the deceased to her parents and friends. Now, Shite, some of the statements which have a casual connection with the death of Manju, circumstances of death, are undoubtedly admissible under 32 of the Evidence Act as held by her, but the statements which do not bear any proximity, underline this word, the statement which do not bear any proximity with the death, or if at all, or remotely or indirectly connected with the death, would not be admissible. Now, for example, her father had exaggerated in the evidence that all the time, every time she was crying and weeping and she had come to my place. That is not to be found in the letters. In fact, the letter which she wrote to her sister and friend, she clearly said, please do not let my parents know about my plight. Samjha? But the father and mother are exaggerating. Naturally, they have emotion for the daughter. They are concerned for the daughter. They would like to see that the husband should be convicted. So the Supreme Court said that there are bound to be exaggeration, there are bound to be embellishment. So the court said that only the proximate facts which are in the closest distance must be taken into consideration, and not which are remotely connected facts. Remotely cannot be taken. Then paragraph number 48 mein check kare aap. Then the Supreme Court said that in the middle, before discussing the evidence of the witness, we might mention a few preliminary remarks against the background of the which oral statements are to be considered. All persons whom oral statements are said to have been made by Manju, when she visited Bede, that is the parent place, for the last time, are close relatives and friends of the deceased. In view of the close relationship affection, any person in the position of a witness would naturally have tendency to exaggerate, add facts which may not have been stated to her at all. Not that is done consciously, but even unconsciously. The love and affection for the deceased would create a psychological hatred against the supposed murderer, and therefore the court has to examine such evidence with great care and caution. So the Supreme Court is issuing an injunction that when you're examining the evidence of close relatives in such matters, you have to give a very, be cautious. Close relations are wanting to take a revenge against the husband, in the present case against Sharad, because he is responsible for killing the daughter. It is on account of him she committed suicide, or she may have been killed, whatever may be. So they are bound to masala laga ke bolenge, isn't it? So their intention is to see that teach a lesson. But the Supreme Court said that a court, you must be very cautious. Um, Such evidence of interested witness cannot be taken for granted. Should be read very carefully, because they are interested person, not because they are bad witnesses. There may be certain good things. That is why the doctrine of factious falses in falses in omnibus come into play. So the evidence which you feel, the court feel, is exaggerated, nikal do usko aap. And evidence which is better part, you take it into include it. So you are from the removing from the chaff a grain, cleaning kar rahe hain aap uske andar. So you are taking the best part of the evidence and eliminating the worst part or exaggerated part. It may not be the worst part, it may be a good part, little exaggerated. बोलेंगे एक थप्पड़ लगाया तो नहीं बोलेंगे सामने 10 थप्पड़ मारा. 10 थप्पड़ मारते ही तो आपको मालूम है, you will get swelling. But as a father or mother, you are bound to get concerned. Yes, मेरी डॉटर को स्ट्रैंगुलेट करने भी गया उसने. 25 थप्पड़ मारा, 20 कोड़े मारा. Like this, they are bound to say that, even if it is that. So that sort of evidence, the Supreme Court said. Then it says, even if the speaking part of this, or perhaps the whole of it would guilt against a so and so person, I'm not going into it. This is what the court says that here. Then they have discussed the various evidences of various people in paragraph number 14 for 59. I won't disturb you and take you through that evidence. So the crux of the matter is that here, the Supreme Court held that here, where the findings which they have recorded, I am just coming to that here. Yeah, paragraph number 72 mein, the husband had taken a different story. He took up the plea, both myself and Manju, my wife, wanted to commit suicide. So he started the theory of suicide. So आप देखेंगे paragraph number 70 in the middle, he volunteered to commit suicide. Thereafter, Sharad put effort to proposal under which both of them were committing suicide. The Supreme Court in paragraph number 72 says, all this story of suicide patch seems to be nothing but a fairy tale. So the Supreme Court doesn't even believe the husband on the point that here he also wanted to commit suicide, she wanted to commit suicide, because yes, building a story to come out of the clutches of the prosecution's case in the matter. Then about the High Court's finding, paragraph number 90 में देखिए आप, the Supreme Court says, we are therefore unable to agree with the High Court and the trial court that the witnesses discussed above are totally dependable so as to exclude the possibility of suicide, and the only irresistible inference that can be drawn from the evidence is that the appellant who had murdered the accused. So the Supreme Court did not accept the finding of the Sessions Court, Trial Court, and the High Court, which says that here, having regard to the evidence of the various witnesses, namely the father of the girl deceased, the sister, brother, and various examined, it appears to be, the High Court is not sure, the Session Court is not sure, they have determined to say that it's a murder case. But they have misread read the other letters of the girl who says that here, I may not be alive tomorrow. I may take a very ultimate steps which are read out to you in that matter. So the Supreme Court, after examining the various factors, then a suicide part, then paragraph number 93 के अंदर भी देखो, another inference that flows from the evidence of the witness is that here, constant of willingness and weeping is one of the important symptom of intention to commit suicide, as mentioned by George W. Brown in so and so in the case. Now, when you read paragraph number 19, when a girl is continuously in depression, is weeping and crying, Brown says that here these are sounds of depression mood, crying, feeling miserable, feeling hopelessness, suicidal tendencies. So they are prone to commit suicide. Then 94 में कहता most of these symptoms appear to have been proved by as existing in Manju's both her letter exhibit 30, 32, 33. These three letters are crucial letters which compel the Supreme Court in holding that here it is not a case of murder, she has committed suicide. I mean, from our own letter. Of course, the Supreme Court did not believe the evidence of the husband and in-laws saying that she committed suicide. No, we are not relying upon evidence. We are only going by her own state of mind. We are only going by her own letters. We are only going by the what was passing through her mind at the time, a psychological fear she had in the mind. From that, it is clear that it is a case of suicide. Of course, the suicide doesn't mean the husband is out. He can be tried under 309, isn't it? Abetment to, he is the chief culprit responsible for a commission of the crime because he was involved immediately with having an affair with some other lady and introduces to her that you obey her, you respect her, and you will be subordinate to her. That could not have been said to her. That all, no one will tolerate it this way. Then 94 में check कीजिए आप. We now come to the second limb, perhaps one of the most important limb of the prosecution, that the circumstance that the appellant last seen with the deceased before her death apparently is proved appears to be a conclusive evidence against the appellant, but there also the High Court has completely ignored the essential detail which cast considerable doubt on the evidence led by the prosecution. So the High Court, the Supreme Court has tore open the evidence of the prosecution case. The chinks were completely exposed in the evidence, which was not correctly seen, minutely seen, either by the trial court or the High Court, who committed an error of law in passing an order convicting the man who gallows in the matter on erroneous presumption that it was a murder. So these are the various circumstances. Then the Supreme Court has discussed various other evidences in the matter, and the case law has been discussed that I won't take you through, and they have followed the judgment of the Supreme Court, which we discuss right now. That judgment, I'll show it to you. Paragraph number, if you can kindly see, paragraph number 152, 153 check करें आप. Yeah. Here the Supreme Court had discussed the case of Hanuman's case in paragraph number 15. How the circumstantial evidence has to be appreciated, what are the conditions and hypotheses to be laid on. Paragraph number 151, देख लीजिए आप, paragraph number 152 and 153. These are the relevant portions of the judgment in that regard. Then ultimately, what does the Supreme Court says? I will read the concluding paragraph to you. In the end, I agree with my, then see that here. In paragraph number 208 of Fazal Ali's judgment, he said that here, and one more important fact, the Supreme Court took up the plea that here, those circumstances that the hypothesis was against the accused were not put to the accused by the session judge in his statement under 313 is very important. So when you open this paragraph number 208 you come to know that here the various questions have been asked. I will read it from here in the middle. This is reflected by some of the question put. Sridhari, the additional session judge Pune appears to have exercised no control over the evidence. See how the strictures have been passed by Supreme Court. Can you get it? Paragraph number 208 in the middle aa jaiye. The additional session judge Pune appears to have exercised no control over the evidence that was tendered in this case and to have been obvious of the scope of the examination of the accused under section 313 CRPC. This is reflected by some of the question put to the appellant. Question number 24 relates to PW20 not maintaining good health, fulfilling ill now. Question number 25 relating to PW22 being a patient of high blood pressure and having suffered a stroke of paralysis 7 years earlier. Question number 30 relates to reception held at Pune on 3/2/1982 and connection with the appellant's marriage with Manju. Question 32 relates to PW6 asking the appellant's father Brinchandan for permission to take Manju to Bid with her and party from PW2 from Pune to Bid. Question number 115 relates to PW30 indulging in criminal acts of rowdyism, tax evasion, etc., and being known as a contact man of police. Section 313 CRPC lays down that in every inquiry or trial for the purpose of enabling the accused personally to explain any circumstances appearing in the evidence against him, the court may, at this stage, without previously warning the accused, put such question to him as the court consider necessary, and shall, after the witness for the prosecution have been examined and before he is called for defense, question and generally on the question. It is clear that evidence on the basis of which the above questions have been put to the appellant is wholly irrelevant, and those questions do not relate to circumstances appearing in the evidence against the appellant. The learned session judge was bound to exercise control over the evidence being tendered in the court and to know the scope of examination under 313. So learned session judge was behaving as if he was a prosecution witness. Sorry to say that a judge cannot behave in this manner. A learned judge should only put to the witness in under 313 the circumstances which are going against him, the hypothesis. You cannot tell him that you are an agent of the police and you are a rowdy evading taxes. Aise questions are irrelevant. These questions are not expected of a session judge to ask the accused under 313 in the examination. He must only ask those questions. Anybody wants to ask question?
Yes, sir, Ashish. So, destroying a person's character is for something else is not relevant to the case, no, sir?
Yes, according to me, is not relevant. So, under 313, because only on the basis of circumstantial evidence this man has been convicted, the session judge should have only put those circumstances to him under 313. But they were not put. If you don't put, like in the cross-examination when you are conducting, you must put your own case to the other side. If you don't put your case, you lose your case. You must not only take up denial of his case, you must put up your own case. You must impeach the credibility of a witness. Must remember these 3-4 factors when you are in a civil case or in a criminal case. You are going to put up your own case. Okay? You examine your witness, you are proving your case. Then you are also taking up denials of the case of the other side. Don't forget to take up denials. That I put it to you that the contention raised by you that you are innocent person is not correct. I put it to you that the alibi taken by you is not correct. I put it to you that the circumstances that you are not a guilty person is incorrect. कहाँ पे डालेंगे सभी? The learned session judges, there is no whisper here. So what the Supreme Court is naturally, rightly annoyed where irrelevant questions are put to the witness under 313. So this is, according to me, this session judge has not done his homework properly, at least in the evidence matter, in the matter. Then High Court, unfortunately, has gone by the media report. And in the media report, you cannot convict anybody like this. You have to go by it. He may be a murderer. He may be a person. He should be given a fair opportunity to defend the case. You must minutely go to the record of the investigation. And so many letters involved in the matter. And they are not bothered to read the letters here. So the prosecution has also exaggerated the various cases. So that is a very unfortunate. Now in 313, 209, the Supreme Court, in the end, I said earlier, I agree with my learned brother Fazal Ali, that is appears to be allowed, accordingly allow the appeal and set aside the conviction awarded to the appellant and direct him to be set at liberty forthwith. So the mistake committed by the session judge has proved to be very costly. Okay. Number two, then Sebastian Mukherjee gave a concurring judgment at paragraph number 201, agreeing with the finding given by Justice Fazal Ali in the matter. He said that 211 में कहते हैं, it is a case of circumstantial evidence. It is also undisputed that the deceased died of potassium cyanide on the night of 11, 12 June, 13 June. 13 June was the date fixed for a betrothal of the sister of the accused. There is no evidence that the accused was in any way hostile or inimical towards his sister. The deceased had a very sensitive mind and occasionally had suffered from mental depression, partly due to the fact that adjusting in a new family and partly due to the peculiar mental making, but mainly perhaps due to the family setup of the accused husband. There is no direct evidence of administering poison. There is no evidence either way that either of the accused underway or poisoning potassium cyanide. In these circumstances, my learned brother, in the view of the entire evidence and letters and the circumstances, have come to the conclusion that the guilt of the accused has not been proved beyond reasonable doubt. So this is a nice judgment, very nice judgment on circumstantial evidence. Judges should not, they should draw the presumptions correctly when it comes to circumstantial evidence, which is a very, very difficult to prove. Please note that circumstantial evidence is not easy to prove. You must take full precaution. That is why the 5 yardsticks laid down must be very, very strictly proved. See, it must be conclusive. So though under the provisions of Section 4 of the Evidence Act, what is conclusive is only 3 sections. That is Section 41 relating to judgments in rem, and Section 121 and 121, the birth of a child and accession. But यहाँ पे the Supreme Court has added additionally, this is thanks to the judgment of the Supreme Court in the year 1952 by judgment written down by Justice Mahajan in Govind's case. Hanumant versus State of Madhya Pradesh, that is 52 Supreme Court. Those 5 guidelines are very important. Otherwise, here also the Excise Commissioner Nagolkar was sought to be, he was convicted for the offense that he has taken bribe, he has fabricated document, he has taken the papers home and revealed to the other party the quotations, all presumption surmises conjuncture. So there is no room for conjuncture unless there is a positive evidence which must be conclusive in nature. The hypothesis must be drawn in such a manner there is no other evidence except the case. So that is the Indian law of circumstantial evidence in our Evidence Act. Now there are 2 cases which I gave you of American cases this morning, circumstantial evidence के ऊपर, which are also on the net. आपने देखा होगा ना? That is relating to human behavior. I gave you Lassie Peterson's murder case. Lassie, that the famous businesswoman in the USA. And another case was hand gloves. किसका case है था वो? That is the case of
O.J. Simpson.
Sir, O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, Simpson's case. So, yeah, Simpson's case. That's, I will just briefly, have you gone to the judgment? Have you seen those clips? देखे आपने नेट के ऊपर से? नहीं.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
My reading of that O.J. Simpson was he was guilty, sir, but he managed to get scot-free because he had a good legal team.
That is the juries. The juries have declared him guilty because one of the glove was found. But his lawyers have told that, yeah, my lord, the glove which was found is not fitting him. देखे ना आपने? The glove is not fitting him. So on the basis of circumstantial evidence, when nobody has seen that he has killed his wife, and it's not fair to convict him. So the court tried the glove in his hand. It was coming very tight. Maybe he must have become fat or put on weight. Dawa giva kha ke aaya hoga us time pe. So before the jury it was fitting, before the court it was not fitting. So he was lucky enough to get rid of it. But they lay down the principle that here, there were several types of circumstantial evidence mean here that can be physical, scientific, and human behavior or indirect testimony of the witnesses. Then the other case, also a very unfortunate case, we have that lady Lassie Peterson's case, where her husband was a big flirt of the first order. He was having several extramarital affairs, isn't it? He was another type of circumstantial evidence is the human behavior. How this behavior, that is the, you may remember Lassie's Peterson's murder case in USA, where a husband, Scott Peterson, was convicted in 2004 by murdering his wife Lassie and the unborn son. So how cruel the father and the husband can be here. The part of the prosecution case in the circumstantial evidence was Scott Peterson's own behavior. I mean, at the candlelight vigil for his wife during the period, this man was happily, merrily making and dancing. It's a mourning situation. When somebody is sitting for a mourning and gathering in the candlelight, the police have taken photograph. This man was exchanging pleasantries with ladies and talking. He was very finely. So that they found that his behavior was not very conducive. Then when they conducted investigation, they went in home. They found him that he has opened a diary and finding out the names of best defense lawyers. When they asked him, why have you opened this diary of defense lawyer when your wife is murdered? He himself complained to police. My wife is missing and she is not available. I don't know. He tells his mother-in-law, your daughter is not traceable, my wife, and please lodge a complaint. He pretends. Because he was having several affairs. He wanted to hide it. That is how it is done. The public prosecutor, the police investigation team was very suspicious on him, on his behavior. And he was rightly held that on the basis of circumstances, his behavior was such, it is not conducive to offer any normal person. Any man of ordinary prudence would not behave in such manner. Isn't it? You would not be laughing at the funeral pyres of your wife or a person who was murdered. That is what. So anybody want to ask any question, बता दीजिए. कुछ पूछना है?
So
hopefully the lecture is clear.
So I have a question.
Yeah, बोलिए.
So you gave us two American cases. Is the way they corroborate evidence and the way they look at evidence different for the Americans than for us?
No, Americans, in fact, our Evidence Act is much more liberal than American evidence. So in America, that rule is not, that illegally collected evidence is not admissible in America. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Illegally collected. Whereas in India, it is admissible. Isn't it? I have given you the example. I mean, the fruits of the poisonous trees case. Isn't it? But even American system, they have borrowed it from England only, the English law. In England, under 32 of the Evidence Act, where there are two types of evidence can be taken in a dying declaration of a person made immediately, and the circumstances relating to death, which is very wide, it is not there in England. So our Indian law is much more liberal. It receives more evidence. So you are allowed to lead all relevant evidence. See, section 6, कल से जाएंगे हम, section 6 से जाएंगे पढ़ करके, that is res geste evidence. Then tape recording evidence, motive, preparation, conduct. I will now take you serially through all the section wise, then deal with it. Then another case law I had given to you last time that year. Whatever you have to prove before the court of law, lead evidence on the fact in issue and relevant fact. But if the fact is irrelevant, if by chance you as a lawyer or your junior have given consent to an irrelevant evidence and the same is taken on record, what is the effect? Can objection be taken right on? Suppose, for example, Xerox copy of a letter, which is a secondary evidence, because the law says that primary evidence must come on record, mean the original. For example, you as a lawyer, your senior send you go for recording evidence. At the recording evidence, Xerox copy dal diye. You did not object. The judge is recording by consent. They taken on record. The senior will tell you, why have you given consent? Well, I never get. The judge wrote it. So you can take up the issue before the appellate court or the same judge before the court, but not the Xerox copy is not admissible under the provisions of Scheme of Evidence Act, because Section 62 of the Evidence Act says that you must receive primary evidence. The document original must come on record. And the Section 67 says contents of a document and signature must be proved. It is not so. Erroneously, concession has given by a lawyer to irrelevant evidence. That irrelevancy may kindly be detached here. So once a judgment came up, the Bombay High Court, that is Justice Sharad Manohar ke paas ek matter hai, that is the case of Mirabella Hotels case. I think I had given to you, just see that here. Mirabella's case, I think. Sorabji versus Mirabella case, Diana, can point out to me? Yes. Can I open this? Whether inadmissible evidence can be admitted in evidence if there is a consent or want of objection from the other side. Now the Bombay High Court judgment I had given, you see, in the previous lecture ke andar main bheja aapko on the record. The parties name are Zena Sorabji versus Mirabelle Hotel. Judgment delivered on 14th January 1980 by Justice Sharad Manohar of the Bombay High Court. This is reported in AIR 1981 Bombay, page number 446. ये judgment देख लीजिए आप. यहाँ पे it was a case typical of a landlord and tenant. A suit was filed by the landlord of subletting. Certain entries were shown by the tenant which were not proved. The books of accounts were produced which were not correctly proved. When they are not correctly proved, and evidence has come on record of irrelevant evidence, the court has a right to remove the evidence. There is no need to worry. If your evidence, you have given wrong concession, you can remove it. Evidence is only admissible as per the provisions of Evidence Act. And the judge has to pass order under section 136 of the Evidence Act, whether the evidence is admissible or not. If irrelevant evidence has gone, and you can always take up the plea that this evidence may kindly be deleted. You can tell in the appellate court also it can be struck off. There is no bar. Okay? The Mirabelle Hotel case, dekh liye, Zina Sorabji versus Mirabelle Hotels case, 81 Supreme Court. So I want to wind up today's lecture. Anybody wants to ask any question, put lijiye. I have other meetings to attend to now. Which anybody has any question?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So lecture is clear. Lecture is clean and clear, isn't it?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay.